Welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. I'm your host, Kojo Bafun, and this podcast is an extension of my book, also called Listen to Your Footsteps, which is a collection of essays, reflections, and poetry on things like fatherhood, identity and belonging, growing up, creativity, and the lessons learned. The purpose of this podcast is to gain insight and learn from the journeys that others have taken. I explore the worlds of art, culture, design, business, creativity, and life from the perspective of Africans who are contributing to the redefinition of the continent and who we are. Okay, so my guest today is Theo Ngobeni, who is creative director for Mr. Slim Fit, which provides male image and style consulting services, as well as made-to-measure tailoring and bespoke services. I won't say what he did before because that's going to be one of my questions. How are you, boss?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
Been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a while. But so my first question is I have a standard first question.
Yeah.
But first of all, where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Pretoria, in the west of Pretoria. There's a township called Atteridgeville.
Yeah.
Peli, popularly known as Peli. So that's where I grew up.
So if I'd met you, if I arrived in Peli when you were like 14, 15, and I asked you what you want to be when you grow up, did you have an idea?
I did, but it was, like any other kid, you chop and change based on, I guess, how your feelings, because sometimes, when you're kids, we choose careers based on, it's not about money and that type of success, but it's more about a need that you're seeing or something that you want to fulfill. So it's more personal and internal rather than outwards.
Sure.
Because most of the time when you grow up, we choose careers based on what it can do for me. But as a kid, you choose career based on what you like and how something can make you feel. For example, one of the careers that I wanted to go into was interior design, because I've always been artsy. I've always loved nice things and all of that. But growing up in the 90s and telling your parents that you want to be in interior design, and they had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
So there was no point of reference. So that was not going to fly. It was quickly shut down. And then I had to find something else. And then I remember saying, I want to do architecture. I want to be an architect. So, which was still part of, the art side. So, and then that was supported. Say, okay, cool, you can go and be an architect, because there were point of references.
You can go an architect to make sure that the building goes up.
Because when I told my parents that I wanted to be an interior designer, they said they thought of like houses and also like houses ekasi, That was their point of reference.
Yeah.
So no one thought of, the suburban houses, the mansions that, the stay in cities. It was far-fetched,
Because interior design is done by your mother.
Yeah,
like she decides what goes where.
Goes to Guinan Richards, Goma there, goes to home choice and buy stuff. That was it. And so for them, the one thing they didn't understand was who's going to pay you to decorate their house. Because for them, there was no point of reference. It didn't make sense. Why would somebody pay you to decorate their space? So, but when I said I want to be an architect, so they could, sort of think about, buildings, like big buildings and things like that. They said, okay, cool. That is a career that we can support you to go into. But then my maths was not good and my science was not good. And to do architect, you needed to have maths and science. And so, that did not work out.
But then you go and study finance.
Yeah, so that's also, it's, my life.
You just said my maths and science was not good. And then the next, you went and studied finance.
I think finance chose me in a sense that, after matric, I matriculated in 2001. And after that, I didn't know what to do. I stayed at home. I took a gap year in 2002. I stayed at home and didn't know what to do. And I started working. I was working for Macro. I was a till packer. I worked there for about 3 months and I was promoted to being a merchandiser at Outdoor. I remember I was there for a while. And it was nice. I enjoyed it. But I was like, this is not my life. This is where this is not where I want to end up. And I remember I used to tell my colleagues that, because a client would come and buy a lot of stuff in a trolley and, like, please help him to his car. And I remember I used to say to them, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy whose trolley is being pushed, to being helped to the car. And that's what I want. And I remember that time my colleagues would laugh at me. They'd be like, yeah, he's such a dreamer. But in hindsight, I mean, it's, when you're not exposed to certain things, it's difficult to comprehend them.
Yeah.
And for me, I had bigger dreams for my life.
Because you don't have a reference point.
Yes. But for me, I wanted more. And I remember in 2003, I started going to Pretoria West College of Engineering. So I went there to upgrade my maths and science. So I started doing maths and science N1, N2, and N3 with the hope of going and doing architecture. And then once I was done with N1 to N3, and then I went out and applied at TUT. And they said, nope, we need pure maths. And I was like, but, and initially for me to go and do N1 and N3, it was because they said that was the alternative. I could take that route. So I went and I did that. When I came back, they're like, nope, we actually want pure maths. And for me, it was, I was crushed. And I remember this was July 2003, because they used to have a media intake at TUT. So I applied for the media intake and they said no. And I was like, okay, I can't sit another 6 months and do nothing. And also, even if I apply, I'm not sure if I'm going to be accepted. So I started researching and looking for other alternatives. And then I stumbled on an article it was one of the adverts on the newspaper from Boston City campus. And they said they do career assessment tests. It's for free. It helps you to know what career path to take. And I gave them a call. I said, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Let me just go and see what this thing says. And I went there. I remember it was on a Friday. I got there, sat with this lady. She explained everything to me. And she sat me down on a computer. It had about 100 questions. You answer yes or no. It's really multiple choice. And like, do you like the color blue? Yes, no. Do you like numbers? Yes, no. So it was that straightforward. It's all based on your personality and what you like. And once I was done with the assessment, it came back. Number one was accounting. And I was shocked because I'd never done accounting in my life. I was like, no way, this can't be right. And number two was business. And engineering was like number 8. So the top 5 was more like finance type of careers. Also the arts. So the creative, I think it was number 3. The creative side was number 3. And so I told the lady, I was like, I've never done accounting. I don't know why this thing is telling me that I need to do accounting. And she's like, no, if you go to university, they start you from basics, so you don't need accounting. All you need is just maths. And I'm like, yeah, the other thing is my metric maths wasn't that good, because in metric, coach, I was one of those kids, not too serious, just going through life. And I remember I didn't even have a university entrance. So back then you used to have either exemption or an S.
Yeah.
So now I pass with an S. So my average was like D. My marks were like D's and D's and D's. And I was like, yeah, I can't go to university. I don't have a university entrance. And she says, no, you can go to UNISA. UNISA, but I'm like, no, I don't want to do part-time. I want to go to school. Like, I really want to go to school. Because at that time I had spent 2 years without properly going to school. Because when I was doing the N3s, I was doing that part-time. I used to attend, I remember, from 2 p.m. to about 5 p.m. So it was afternoon classes. So for a good 2 years, I didn't have like a proper schooling, how school.
And you don't feel like you're part of that kind of, let's call it, education journey.
Yes.
It feels like something that's an add-on.
That's true.
And if you're working part-time, it's like, okay, which is the more important? Is it the work that you're doing, or is it the school that you're going to?
Yes. So it was that. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I still want to go to school. And I want the experience of going to campus, the experience of being a student, not a scholar anymore. Because I had the scholar experience. I wanted to be a student. And that's what I wanted. And lo and behold, I saw another article on the newspaper. It was an ad from Vista University. And they were offering a bridging program. So if you didn't get proper university entrance, you do a bridging program. And then if you pass all your subjects in the bridging program, then you get automatically accepted into first year. And then I went and I inquired. So this was in 2003 still. And I applied and then they accepted me. Luckily for me, in 2004, Vista merged with University of Pretoria.
Okay.
So then it became, so it was the Vista University, the Mamelodi campus. So then it became University of Pretoria Mamelodi campus. So then I started there. I did my bridging in economics. So I did become own choice. And then I did that in 2004. That was the bridging. And I was doing accounting for the first time. And I was doing about 8 subjects that year. And Kojo, the funny thing is I passed all the 7 subjects and I failed accounting. I think my final accounting mark was like 38%.
Listen, I dropped accounting as quickly as I could because I also did a BCom.
Yeah.
And I had to do accounting. I'd never done accounting before, but I only needed it for my first year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wrote a sub for it.
Yeah.
And all I did was I had a template of an income statement and a balance sheet on my wall.
Yeah.
And every morning when I woke up, before I opened my eyes, I would recite it to myself. When I walked into the exam, because when they told me that it doesn't have to balance,
you get marks.
They mark you for the working. So I literally walked in, pulled out blank sheets, and I wrote the thing out. Even though it didn't correlate with the question, I just wrote the thing out. And after that, accounting was my first lecture. I think it was my first lecture. I had 3 lectures a week. It was my first lecture of the day twice a week. I used to have a friend try and come and wake me up. And when she started waking me up, she just knock on the door and say, go shower. I'm like, sharp. And then it got to the point where she'd wait for me to take my stuff and walk into the bathroom. And then she'd go. And I still wouldn't make lectures. So I get the accounting thing.
Yeah. So for me, it was difficult. I tried. Because that first year, my thing was I knew that, you know what, I'm a very smart kid. I've always known that. But somehow, life happens and the adolescent stages happen, friends and all of that. And then you become derailed. And so the 2 years that I stayed at home, for me, it made me hungry. So I became hungry to be on campus, to be a student and experience that. But at the same time, because a couple of times I was turned down because based on my marks, that taught me my first lesson in life. That, in order to get to certain places, you need to have certain things. Not everybody will open the door for you.
Sure.
You need to have the right access to get into certain doors. And that's when I realized that actually I need to have good marks. And so when I started in 2004 with my bridging program, I literally said my life is going to be school. So I used to wake up in the morning. I used to leave home at 6:30, go to school, come back at like 7 p.m. So even when I'm done with my classes, I'd stay in campus, go to the library, study, and do all of those things. Weekends, I'd wake up, clean the house, leave, go to the library, and then meet with my friends from varsity. So my friends from home, Kokasi, literally I had to sort of like cut steadily, like in terms of minimize the amount of time that I spent with them, because also we wanted different things. I wanted more for my life and they were kind of comfortable with what they had. And so I said, okay, for me to have certain things, I need to now align myself with people who are moving in that direction. And that's what I started doing. So, end of the year, like I said, I passed 7 modules, failed accounting, but the other 7 modules, I think about 5 of them I got distinctions for them. And so you needed to only pass 80% of your modules. So because I passed more than 80%, then I got admitted into first year. And then I started my first year still Mamelodi. Then I registered for BCom Finance and I did my first year Mamelodi. And I remember there was a career day that they had Pretoria Showgrounds where they had different corporates and, it was like a proper career expo. And I met this other lady from the JSE and they were talking about the scholarship that they offer. And they only offer it from second year.
Okay.
And they said, listen, minimum we're looking for is 75%. 65. Yeah, it was 65%. Minimum that they're looking for 65. They pay for everything. And I remember I was with a friend of mine and I looked at it and I took the pamphlet and I was like, this is mine. I won the scholarship. After that, I didn't care about any other thing in that exhibition. All I cared about was this scholarship and I'm getting it. And I remember taking that woman's number, writing them down and going. And that was the beginning of the year. And I told myself, okay, they want 65%. I'm going to work for an average of 70. And I went back and I studied. I remember in October, remembering, the deadline is, I think, end of October. And I remember I phoned them. It was a Thursday. I was at school. I went to a tiki box. I phoned this lady. She picked up and I'm like, listen, you're speaking to so-and-so and I'm looking for the application forms for this. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. Actually, the closing date is tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. Do you have an email address? And I said, yes. She sent me the forms via email. It says, please fill them up and then email them back or fax them. Back then we still have faxes, yeah. And then I was like, okay, cool. So she sent it to me. I went to the library, printed them, took them home. And I got home, I gave it to my parents. They signed. And I asked my dad to fax tomorrow at work. And I told him that the deadline is tomorrow because tomorrow is Friday. He went and he faxed everything sharp. That was around October. Went, final exams, wrote nothing. And I think when I was done writing my final exams, I got a call. Hi, Theo. I remember that lady, Anna Marie Wood. I'll never forget her. She phoned me. She's like, this is Anna Marie Wood from the Investment Analyst Society of South Africa. We saw your application from the JSE. We're interested in interviewing you. Please come through. And I was like, sharp. Went to the JSE. I'd never been to the JSE. From Atteridgeville. And funny enough is my friend's sister used to work for First Rand, which is in Sandton, which is closer to JSE. And she offered to take me. And she took me there. I went for my interview, sat down with them. We did the interview. And one of the questions I remember that lady asked me, which was quite interesting, she said, we're looking at your matric marks and your university marks. These are two different people. What happened in between? And for me, I related the story I just did now, So I told her that, I realized the importance of going for what you want. And now, because this is what I really, really wanted, I was hungry for this opportunity. And when it was given to me, I took it and I ran with it. And for me, that lady really loved the story. And she said, you know what? We've interviewed about 10 other students. We're looking for only 2 students that we're going to fund. But we'll let you know in January. Sharp. Went on December, everything. January came. And I remember that day, it was a Friday around 4 p.m.
You seem to remember days of the week. Like this whole story just
I have a very good memory.
It was this day, that day, that day.
I have a very good memory. The one thing about me is I have a very good memory. So we're sitting, I can just see it. Those cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're sitting just behind it. We're with my friends there. Kokasi at the corner, sitting there. It was around 4 p.m. My phone rings. It rings. It's an 011 number. We know 011, you have to answer 011 at that time. Pick up the phone. It's Anna Marie Wood and the other line. And she's like, hey, Theo, it's Anne. How are you? I'm good. She's like, okay, I've got some good news for you. You've got the scholarship. We're going to fund you for this year. And man, Kojo, that changed my life.
How do you reconcile, because you're on this journey, right?
Mm.
And you have a clear idea of where it is. Well, you have an idea of what you need in terms of to get to the life that you want to have.
Mm.
But you're still in the township.
Mm.
And you're going to school, starting off, you're going to school in the township.
Mm.
So yes, you said you had to look at even the kind of your friends and the people you hang out with. And life is like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that line, people come into your life for what?
Season or reason.
Yeah. Season, reason, etc. So there's nothing wrong with, I don't believe there's anything wrong with people grow apart.
Yes.
And it's
part of life.
It's not this person's better or that person's better. It's just, okay, you come together in a particular moment and it serves its purpose and you move on.
That's true.
But how are you then, because you're also young.
Yeah.
How are you then reconciling, like you're talking about sitting on the corner.
Mm.
Like you've been sitting on that corner for years. The people there are people that have been part of your life for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of, I'm not your friend anymore, go away.
Yeah.
But it's trying to navigate that. How did you navigate that, like, let's say mentally and emotionally?
I'm a very disciplined person, and I'm not one for instant gratification. So I'm more long-term focused with the things that I do. And it's why I am where I am today, and I'm sitting where I am today. So it takes a lot of mental strength. And also I'm a You know, a lot of people when they think that I'm an extrovert, but I believe that I'm an ambivert. You know, there are times when if I need to, I can, you know, be with people but then I get depleted and I want to be by myself. I want to recharge and I'm like that. I was funny like that. And I remember I was saying to somebody the other day that actually I was saying this to my wife. And because one of the things that she couldn't understand was how are you able to spend time alone by yourself? Like that doesn't make sense. You know, there are times when I want to go on holiday alone and my wife doesn't get it. And I'm like, it started. So she was asking me like, when did this thing start? And I told her that growing up, I had to learn to do things on my own because I realized that with things that I want, not everybody wants them and it's okay. But because I want them, I need to do certain things by myself. You know, so that's when I started to say, okay, I'm not saying I'm not going to hang out with my friends anymore, but I'm going to minimize because most of my time that I need to spend it building on my future. I'll still see my friends when I have the time. Like I said, it was January. I was not going to school.
Yeah.
You know, we were just relaxing. And that was it. So for me, it was knowing what I want and what it takes for me, what it's going to require from me. Because, you know, I used to watch a lot of Oprah, you know, growing up. I think it used to play on SABC 2 or SABC 3. I used to watch a lot of, and she interview like, you know, businessmen and women. And I used to like watching also Take 5, you know, very like educational things. That was me growing up, you know. So
I was in Take 5 twice in my life.
I remember.
and somebody, SABC, or there was a thing on DSTV, a channel on DSTV, where they were showing old SABC.
Oh, yes.
Old
they used to call it SABC Encore.
Encore, yes.
Yeah.
And they played an episode.
Where you were there.
Where I was being interviewed, and it's so surreal just watching me then.
Yeah. But it's always the case.
How I dressed.
Yeah.
My accent.
Yeah.
The tone of my voice was, yeah.
And you had what hairstyle did you have back then?
I was growing my hair so around that time the topic was navigating failure in business or navigating a failed business. So I already had a problem with the premise because I'd left when I moved to Joburg. I started an IT company with a friend of mine, and we eventually decided to split up.
No,
because it wasn't working for me anymore. So I was like, look, you keep the business, I'm going. And they were like, yeah, but you failed. I'm like, no, I didn't fail. Like it wasn't working. So I decided, but I was working with a fashion designer then. So I'd started growing, my goatee was braided. I used to have my goatee braided. And my hair was growing because eventually I had a big afro, but it was like the early stages of it.
Yeah, because I can remember that interview.
Yeah, a very different life with those long Steve Harvey suit jacket that hangs long with the wide shoulders. Yeah, another lifetime.
That's true. So yeah, for me it was that, navigating that and knowing what it will take from me. So like I said, I'm always forward thinking and always forward focused. So I had to expose myself to the unknown. You know, with a lot of things in life, I had to teach myself. And I look back now, you know, Steve Jobs always said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can always connect them looking backwards. And I look back now and I'm like, everything that I went through in life was preparing me for where I am today. You know, because a lot of the things I had to do by myself, like a lot of things I had to learn to be okay with being by myself. I had to learn with being okay to venture into new territories alone. And that's what I've had to do all my life. You know, so for me, I'm one person who's not afraid of change. You know, I embrace change as much as it's uncomfortable. And I won't say that, you know, I take it, you know, light. It's easy for me. I can do it. No, it's difficult, but I embrace it. And I'm not afraid of change. I'm not afraid to start over because I've done it, you know, countless of times. You know,
I mean, talking about that, like you went from when I met you, you were in finance.
Yes.
So you went from, you know, Rand Merchant Bank to ArcelorMittal. Did you get the R&B job out of school?
Yeah, fast forward, got the scholarship, passed my degree with cum laude, and got the SRC academic colors. Went to the scholarships guys and said, listen, I want to do my honors. Are you guys able to fund it? They never used to. They looked at my marks. They're like, we're impressed with how you've performed. We're going to fund your honors. Did my honors full time. And the nice thing is with a scholarship is it's not like a bursary. You don't have to work for them. So they're like a donor.
Okay.
So there's no strings attached. And so, but I had the option to work at the JSE if I wanted to. So that was an option so I knew that either way I have a job.
Yeah.
But then when I was doing my honors, I applied to 2 banks actually, but I only wanted to go to one. Even when the year started, I said to my friends, I'm going to work for R&B. And I applied for R&B. The second one I applied because a friend of mine said, let's apply moral support. And I was like, okay, cool. And I applied also to Deutsche Bank. And we went for the interviews. I remember the first interviews were Deutsche Bank. And we went there, Kojo. They chose the top 50 students in South Africa. And they invited us. We went and sent in and, went in there. Oh, it was very intimidating. Because for me I've always been like Mfanakasi, grew up Kokasi. Even in varsity, the friends that I had were from Kokasi. My friends were from Mamelodi, others were from Abopane, Soshanguve. So, Narabolelas Pitori. All my life, Narabolelas Pitori. English would dab into it every now and then. And then I got to Deutsche and, you get in there and you see these boys from Ivy League schools, these boys from UCT especially. Oh, the confidence. Kojo, I felt out of place. Yeah, bro, like, I was so intimidated, you get there and I felt, for the first time, I felt like I didn't belong. I remember I was at Deutsche and I felt like, you know what, God, thank you for the experience, but yeah, this is not for me. I don't belong. And that's when you see the power of God. God says, no, I'm not done with you. From the top 50, I was invited to top 15. And top 15, I was invited. Only we're choosing 5 students from 50. And I was part of the top 5. They sent me an offer to say, we want you. Did the same thing with R&B, went through the interviews. And with R&B also, they gave me an offer. So by the time, I think this was actually on my birthday, 2nd of October, 2008, I had 3 offers. And I had to choose. I had to choose. And so, because, with R&B, when I walked into R&B for the first time, when I was doing my interviews, I felt at home. Like the culture, the way they were dressed, it was like easygoing. You could see guys with chinos, shirt, and Friday jeans. And Deutsche Bank, it was suits all the time. I love suits, Kojo. Don't get me.
I was about to say the irony that your business, is suits, but
I love suits, but not all the time. And also, it was that that Wall Street type of culture, because Deutsche Bank is a German bank, so they have that culture. I just felt out of place. And I remember part of the Deutsche Bank graduate program was the first 6 months, you're going to have to go and be stationed in Germany and then come back. I mean, people would grab that with both hands and run with it. And I'd never been outside of South Africa. I'd never been outside of Gauteng. Well, the only time I went outside of Gauteng was when I went to Venda, that was the only time. So for me, it was scary. But also, I think because I didn't feel at home, I decided to turn it down. I mean, Deutsche Bank was offering more money. But for me, money was not the driver. At R&B, I felt at home, and that's what I wanted from the word go. I said I wanted R&B, and when they gave me the offer, I took it. And I felt at home, and I fit in. I loved it. And, I worked at R&B as a Forex dealer for about 4.5 years. And
not like the Forex dealers not like the Forex dealers we're dealing with on Instagram.
Not the ones on Instagram.
A proper one.
A proper one. So yeah, I did that 4.5 years. And then from there, I got an offer because I felt like I had sort of like hit the ceiling. Because with that also, it's not as linear as, you entry level management, what. No. So it's literally junior dealer, senior dealer, or the head of the desk. And like, you don't know when that is going to happen.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where you're like, I feel like I've sort of hit the ceiling. I need to pivot. And that's when I said, you know what? When an opportunity came to go to ArcelorMittal, so ArcelorMittal was one of our clients. So we used to work with ArcelorMittal in terms of their treasury in buying and selling Forex. So for me, the opportunity came and I said, this is an opportunity for me to go and see what's happened on the other side because now I know what happens on this side.
Yeah.
So it was going to make me more marketable. So I took the opportunity and said, okay, I'll go to ArcelorMittal. Lo and behold, that was in Van der Bijl Park. And yeah.
My brother-in-law worked there, so I know.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, that was back in 2013. So literally 11 years ago now. It was still, I mean, Val Mall did not even have, the only thing they had was Markham's and Edgar's. You know, it was still like a clean dorpy.
No, my family, I have family there, so I know the place.
So for me, being like a city boy, it was like a culture shock. But I remember when I went there for the first time, I also felt, after the first interview, I remember phoning my wife, who was then my girlfriend, and I said, I think this is for me. I think I need to move here. I didn't understand it back then, but I was like, I think I need to move here. And I didn't even do a second interview. They offered me the position and I took it. Then I moved from Sandton to Van der Bijl Park. Then I stayed there. And yeah, for me, that was my, you know, they say before elevation, there's separation. God separates you before he elevates you. So for me, that was that.
You are listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast, a podcast in which I chat to Africans from a cross-section of society and sectors, including art, culture, design, business, and creativity, to name a few. I delve into their journeys, the decisions they've taken to get to where they are, how they do what they do, and everything in between. Essentially, we go wherever the conversation takes us. But at the same time, now you're ordering pocket squares and bracelets from Turkey, like in the middle of all of this. Like, okay, you're doing your pivot, you're going to the next stage, but then so where does that come in? Like, because that's around the time I met you.
Yes,
so I met you in the time from R&B to going to ArcelorMittal.
Yes,
and like you're saying, you like suits. Because even though you ran away from suits in the place, when I met you, you were the suit guy as well.
Yes, that's true.
Like that was the era when there was, let's call it the dandy. Like
yes.
There was all of that attention on suits, but also wearing suits and having your personal, your personal preference and flavor coming through in your suits.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, mine was always, the socks.
Yes.
When the socks started coming in. But yeah, so at what point do you go, okay, you look like you're building a career over here.
Yeah.
You're getting offered jobs. They're just going, yeah, you're the person for us. Here you go. Where do now the the lapel flowers and bracelets and pocket squares come into the picture?
So it's passion. I've always loved clothes. I always say to people, the first time I came to Johannesburg, it was December 2001. I was going to Carlton Center in Small
What day
Street.
of the week was it? You must give me the days of the week now. Since
I can't remember. But I know it was during the week.
You've set a precedent.
But I know it was during I can't remember whether it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, but it was during the week, in the middle of the week. So I got onto Metro Rail. A friend of mine told me about it. It's like, there's this place, Kojozi, Barake Carlton Center, and there's this other one called Small Street. And I remember at that time, 2001, Levi's was, the brand to have. Levi's, Diesel, those were the brands to have. And he said to me, because he had just come back and he had all these Levi's stuff. I'm like, what did you get them? He's like, no, I got them at Carlton Center. There's this shop called Big L. It's a Levi factory outlet and they sell stuff for cheap. And I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah, I got this jean for 100 Rand. And that was 2001. I'm like, okay. So at that time, luckily, my parents used to give me money for clothes like once a year. And I remember, I think they gave me like 1,000 Rand. And I had to get stuff and last me for the year. And I took that and I was like, okay, I'm going to Joburg. Got into Metro Rail, out, and then got off at a park station. And he told me that you must look for Small Street. Don't ask anyone anything and don't look like you belong. He gave me that mandate. And that's what I did. I was in shorts, t-shirt, and a backpack. And I said, I'm going to put my stuff in the backpack. I'm not going to hold them in plastic bags. Went, looked for it. Eventually, I found Small Street. Went down, looked at different stores, looked around. I said, no, I'll come back. Looked around. Eventually, I ended up at Carlton Center. Went to Big L. Got there. I remember I found my first 2 pairs of jeans there, 3 t-shirts. And then I also went to this place called Mania. It was somewhere there. They used to have diesel and gas. I bought my diesel jeans there and some t-shirts. I came back stocked. I was proper. Came back. When I came back, I got off the train, got onto the taxi, and then when I got off the same corner. The guys were sitting there. I got a hero's welcome back. It's like I had conquered Joburg because I went there by myself, not even knowing Joburg. And for me, that was my first journey with fashion. Okay. That's where it started. And from there on, 2010, when I met you, so this thing of me doing things alone, I've always loved events, going to events, like, gentlemen events. So I moved to Joburg, I'm alone. Most of my friends are still in Pretoria. So I wanted to go to these events, but my friends are in Pretoria. And some of these events in Joburg, they're during the week. My friends can't come. And I remember I've always wanted to, because I used to read Destiny Man. I've always wanted to go to the Power 40 dinners. No, it was called Power Dinner. The Power Dinner with
the Power Dinners.
Yeah, the Power Dinners. And I said, man, I want to go to this thing. I remember this one time I said, no, I'm gonna buy a ticket for myself and go. And I did. And that was the first time I met you. It was it's now Ribouville. It was called Tinswalo.
Tinswalo, yes.
It's not.
That was the first one I did.
Yes, that was the first one you did when you became the editor.
Because I just joined.
You just joined, yes. I went to that one. That's when I met you. I met Umzo as well. I guess because Vusi Tembewai.
Yeah.
So that was my first one. I came there alone. And for me, after the end of the night, I was like, man, this was amazing. I had such an amazing time, and I didn't even feel like I went there alone. And actually for me, I was like, it was a good thing I went alone because I was able to network with all these guys, and, I came back and I think that's when I started my relationship with Mzo, because we connected really well from that point. We started speaking after that, and that's when I got the feature at Destiny, and I started also engaging with you as well. And that's when it started. And then I realized that actually these are the things that I like doing, and it's okay for me to do them alone. And that's where it started. And then 2011, I started, because I used to have a lot of pictures of, guys in fashion, like European guys with clothes, different styles and whatnot. And then I showed them to my friends. And I, back then, our phones used to have megabytes in terms of capacity. And my phone would be filled with pictures of fashion. And my friends would be like, no, man, you need to share these things with us. And every time you have to share, it's like via Bluetooth. Infrared. It was infrared, I think. Yeah. So it took time, and they're like, can't you find a place where you can put all these things because you're always collecting them? Then we can find them. And somebody said, you can start a blog. There's this thing called Tumblr. And I was like, what is Tumblr? And then they showed me what is it and how do you use it. And I was like, okay, cool. That's when I started. I started on Tumblr, did my stuff. And then I sent my friends links to say, this is where you can check out the stuff. And then they're like, okay, the problem now is in order to follow you, we need to have accounts on Tumblr as well. We don't want to be part of this thing. And, isn't there like a way that you can make it easier for us? And I said, okay, cool. Maybe let me create a Facebook page because everybody has Facebook. That's when I created a Facebook page called Slim Fit Swag. That was my face page. And I started doing men advice, style advice. And that's what I started doing. Advising men on color coordination, how to fabric, how to shop for a suit. And because I loved it, because even at work, when I was still working for R&B, after hours, the nice thing about working in the financial markets is you don't take work home. Your laptop is your computer's at work. So those 5 screens that you have, they're there. You come in, you log on, you work. When it's done, you log off, you go home. You don't take work home. So you still have a life outside of that. So usually what I do is sometimes I'd go to Sandton City, just go window shopping, go see what's in this season, what's trending, all of that. Because I'd have colleagues come and say, I'm looking for black shoes. I said, what type of black shoes are you looking for? Are you looking for derbies? Are you looking for brogues? Are you looking for, I'm looking for loafers. Okay, here are the stores in Sandton where you can find them. I knew that off, And so I started doing that and I enjoyed it. So sometimes I'd go, I had friends at Spitz, at Urban, at Akajo, and, the guys that worked there, they knew me because I used to be like such a regular.
Yeah.
And at times I'd go like after work and just hang out with them. And because I'd be intrigued, like they'd tell me like, okay, so how do you know what to put on the mannequin? They taught me merchandising. How do you know, like, so what determines what's coming on season? So, we have a fashion buyer who does that for us. Like, what is a buyer? No, when they come, we'll introduce you to them. And then they introduce me to one. I sit down with them. Oh, like, what do you do? So I got intrigued. So that's how my journey started. And I wanted to know more. The more I learned, the more and I was like, this is where I belong. This is home. And I remember Cedric Ntumba.
Yeah.
I remember he once said to me, he said, I see you love this fashion thing, but what are you willing to do to pursue it? At what cost? So if somebody comes to you today and say, listen, you an investment banker, you're earning a lot of this money, I'll give you 5,000 Rand a month to pursue your dream. Would you do it? I remember he asked me that question in 2012. It took me 2 years to answer that question. Because I was like, no, I couldn't. But then I got to a point where I was like, it's not about money anymore. Because when I was at ArcelorMittal, I was earning good money. I was, but I was not fulfilled because I knew what I wanted to do. And I remember saying to myself, I need to pursue this. If I don't, it's gonna eat me alive. And I think for me, it's because I knew what I wanted to do. And I was doing it part-time.
And you've been exposed to beyond the facade of it.
Yes.
Like you'd been exposed to what it's really like behind the scenes.
That's true.
Talking to Lerato Chabalala, who we've both been in magazine, because in magazine you sell a image, what it looks like behind the scenes, like the level of work, the sacrifices that you actually make for it to look
the way it does.
For it to look the way it does. And I remember I used to have a lot of those conversations with people, even at the dinners which you used to come to, where people would complain about this or talk about that. Or I remember a conversation I always had was, or somebody would say they want a column. And I remember having a conversation with somebody and going, okay, so which columnist must I take out? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, we have limited space. So if I am bringing in a column, if I'm going to bring you in, somebody needs to go. It's not a matter of, oh, you have something interesting to tell. Therefore, I'm just going to add.
There you go, yeah.
Because everything is costed when you're doing a shoot, all of those things. So you at least were exposed. You had a stronger understanding of that.
Yes.
So you went into it to a certain extent with your eyes open.
That's true.
With a decent base to it.
Yes, that's true. Because I remember I had friends who were also designers. So I'd go to SA Fashion Weeks, go behind the scenes, see what goes on. And so I literally immersed myself into the industry before I was in it, whilst I was still in banking. And I remember when I decided to leave, I took the decision. It was in August 2004 to sort of 2014. And I remember I decided, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to leave. But I'm not leaving now. So I'm going to work for the rest of the year and, tie up some loose ends. And then, but the 1st of January 2015, I'm going to be unemployed. That's what I decided to do. I went and I told my parents, this is what I want to do. And they fully supported me. I also told my girlfriend, this is what I want to do. And she's like, yeah, I know you, this is who you are.
Because I was going to ask what that conversation was like. Because, you're talking to your girlfriend, who's also a professional in her own right.
Yes.
You guys you're building a particular lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, there you are. You got married not long after that.
Yeah.
Like, there you are. There you are deciding, actually, do you know what? This trajectory that I'm on, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. It was, the thing is, it was an easier conversation than I expected, even with my parents. I prepared like a whole slideshow presentation and, PowerPoints, the figures and whatnot. And they're like, no, we trust you. We trust you. You've proven yourself and we trust you. You have credibility. And I was disappointed because like my slideshow presentation is going to waste. But it wasn't like a difficult conversation. And I told them what I wanted to do, and they're like, okay, cool, support you. Told my girlfriend, sharp, I support you. I know this is what you want to do. Funny enough is, with my girlfriend's parents, it was a difficult one because they didn't understand. They're like, what do you mean he's going to make suits and stuff? Like, is he, because they're thinking, when it comes to, when you say somebody's going to make suits, and they're thinking that guy who sits at the corner with a sewing machine and people bring things, and that's what they were thinking. They're like, dude, from investment banking to, no, is he okay? Like upstairs. Yeah, so it was, I had to kind of like explain to them, now this is, I'm not going to sit on the machine, and it's bigger than that. Eventually they understood, but yeah, And yeah, I think I started then my exit into the space. And funny enough is I was thinking about it the other day, and I said this to Andile. So there was I think it was a 5th-year anniversary for Destiny Man. It was a birthday at somewhere in Rosebank. There was a house.
Yeah, it was in Saxonwold.
Yes.
What's it?
There was a house, like a white house. Yeah. So at that event, I was standing with you. Andile was the keynote speaker.
Yeah.
I was standing with you, and then Andile came and you introduced us. And the first thing Andile said to me was, you said, "Hey, this is Theo, this is Andile." And Andile said, "Wow, you look very dapper. I hope this is what you do for a living." And I was in the process of moving. And for me, that was, wedding season.
Because I remember you used to come up like once a month. You'd come up and we'd have long conversations about what you want to do with the business, or you're thinking about it. And
so for me, it was like what he said for me was like, man. And funny enough is I said this to him the other day, and he's like, "Me? I said that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what you said." He's like, I don't remember it. I'm like, "You don't, because you were just a vessel. I needed the word. I will remember it because it had impact on me." And that's when the transition started. And then end of the year, eventually it came to me leaving my job. And then I left. And then January 2015, I was unemployed. And I sat and I'm like, okay, so what do we do? And then I wanted to be a stylist because I love styling and that's what I do best. So I said, okay, I'll do wardrobe makeovers and all of those things. I had like a big plan. But in real life, things don't work like that. I remember actually Andile was one of the clients that I wanted to target, to say, okay, I'm going to go to Andile and say, I want him to be one of my clients. And I remember I went to, he still does them, I'm Entrepreneur, one of the first ones. So I remember he did it at 44 Stanley, and the speaker out there was the guy who used to own Sobe. Yeah, so I went to one of them. And when I was there, I remember after the event, I spoke to Andile and I was like, listen, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. It's like, yeah, I hear you. What have you done? Where's your portfolio? Can I see some of the stuff that you've done? At that time, I didn't have a portfolio, nothing. And I was like, oh, this guy, hey, can't he just give me like an opportunity? But then also that was another lesson I learned in life, that people don't buy products or services. They buy track record.
Well, I mean, they buy trust.
Yeah. It's part of track record.
So they buy trust, and trust can come from track record, or trust can come from relationship.
Yes.
But the key is that
track record.
Like the key is some element of trust.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people make me stuff because I had an interaction with them, and it hasn't been good. But I've done it because it was like, okay, it's not going to cost me that much. Let me try it out.
Yeah.
But by and large, that's it's that trust element. It's the trust that you're going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver.
That's true. I mean, at that point, I didn't see it like that. So for me, it's here's a guy I look up to who's refusing to give me an opportunity. That's what I saw. Because most of the time when you get a no, you start by having a pity party. And you internalize things. Is it me? But as you grow, you learn certain things. And for me, that no from Andile was a good thing, because it made me realize that I'm gonna have to go and build. I'm gonna have to go and build track record. I'm gonna have to go and work. For me, I cannot start with a client at his level. I have to start from somewhere.
Yeah.
Build, the clientele, build the reputation, work, so that when you get to that level, there's a specific service and product that they expect. You need to be able to deliver it. So for me, it sort of gave me like a wake-up call. So that's what I did. Went back, and then I started. So I started with guys who are getting married and looking for outfits. I'd style them. So I had relationships with different stores. So I'd go and I'd have like a percentage as a stylist. I'd also charge the client for styling. And that's how I started. Weddings were my big thing. I'd had clients come in, style them and do that. And that's how I started. Now, I remember also, I think I gave you a call and I said, listen, I'd like to learn more about fashion styling. And I wanted to come in at Destiny. And you connected me with Umpumi. I remember
Mpumi. I think I'd left by then.
Yes, you had left by then. And so I spoke to Mpumi. I told her that this is who I am. This is what I want to do. And she said, cool, I hear you, but we don't have any vacancies at the moment. when anything comes up, I'll let you know. I'm like, no, I'm not looking for a vacancy. Like, I'm volunteering my services. Like, I want to come and learn. And she was shocked. She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I just want to come and learn. Can you guys teach me like everything that I just want to be in the space? And she's like, okay, cool. When can you start? I'm like, Monday. Cool, Monday. She said, okay, this is where we're meeting. Come through at this time. Then I went. I remember we're sourcing. We met at Sandton City. We're going to source for a shoot. Went to Zara, went to all of these things. And then Tuesday we came through. We met at Judd's studio, sorted out everything. And that was my first shoot. For me, I felt at home. Kojo. Like I got home and I was so happy, you know. And for me, I think they saw the passion and the hunger and the work ethic because I was working like I'm being paid. You know, there was nothing I didn't want to do. So for me, when I got into the fashion industry, I said I took my degrees and experience and I shelved it. I said nobody knows me here. I'm gonna need to make a name for myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start from the very, very bottom. And so I didn't come up with that thing that I used to be an investment banker. I can't do certain things. No, I literally humbled myself and I said, whatever you have, let me know. I don't mind if it's pinning this, if it's ironing, if it's steam, like I want to do because I wanted to learn. And that's how I got to learn as much as I could. And for me, being at Destiny, because there were other departments as well that wanted my services. You know, I'd have a guy who said, listen, I'm doing an article on grooming. Can I interview you? I said, cool. And so it gave me a platform to, and that helped me to build my portfolio. You know, so I became marketable now.
Yeah.
And by that, I also created my website. Everything that I did, I was putting the links there. And that's what I was busy building, my portfolio. And lo and behold, you know, people are watching, you know, are posting these things on social media. And I remember, I think it was around May that year, been with Destiny for about 3 months. And I got an inbox from Linda Mali. She used to be the editor of Bona. She says, listen, we're starting Bona Men and I'm looking for a male stylist. And I've seen some of the stuff that you do. Can we have a conversation? I'm like, okay, cool. I went and I met with her. And she's like, this is what we're doing. I'm looking for a male stylist who's going to run with this. And I was like, this is a nice opportunity, but I've never done this on my own. And I said to her, I'm like, listen, this is a great opportunity. I like it, but I've never done this on my own. I've always been under Mpumi's shadow. And, you know, she's like, yeah, but I believe in you and I trust in you. Do you think you can do this? And I was like, yeah, I know I can do it. And she's like, okay, cool. Then I want you to do it. And just like that, I got an opportunity to be a stylist for Bona. And the first person I styled, it was a cover that they did, their first cover with DJ Spoo. And I remember, I mean, I used to look up to Spoo. I mean, for me, styling him, I went, sourced all these clothes, came with the clothes, styled the Spoo. Because usually guys will come with some of their clothes.
Yeah.
Because they're like, some of the stuff people bring, they're not who I am. They don't speak to me. And I remember Spoo wore everything that I sourced for him. And he said to me, this was the first time he went to a shoot and he didn't have to use his clothes. And for me, that was like a stamp to say I'm on the right path. And from there on, I went on to do, you know, every cover for Bona Men, even the fashion spreads. I did that. So that's how it started. And then I did that in 2015, the whole of 2015. But also at the same time, when we were working with, when I was working with Destiny, you know, for the covers, it would be businessmen. So you style them and they like some of the stuff you sourced for them. And I'd see that as an opportunity to say, no, actually, I'm a wardrobe stylist. If you want me to do this for you, I can actually do it on a full-time basis. And got contacts. Some of them were just leads. Some of them worked. Some of them didn't. And throughout that time, I realized that fashion styling is nice and all, but this is not what I want to do. You know, I always say to people, you think you want to do something until you start doing it.
Yeah.
And then you realize that actually, this is not what I thought it was. It was nice, but I still felt like I'm working for someone, you know, and my thing was I've always wanted freedom.
Yeah.
To be like creativity. I wanted to have like full control of creativity. And that's what I always wanted. And also I remember I had a client who wanted a navy blazer, you know, the classic navy blazer with gold buttons. And I went around looking for it. I went everywhere. And I remember there was a point, Suit Supply was also in South Africa at that time. And they were in Hyde Park. I went there, they also didn't have it. It took me about 3 months to find that jacket. I was like, but it can't be. It can't be. And that's when I saw a gap. I was like, actually, what if I actually made this thing? And a friend of mine introduced me to these guys who tailored a suit for him for his wedding. And he said to me, because you're in the fashion space, these guys are very good, but they're sitting downtown Joburg and they don't care about all these things. They just care about garment construction, craftsmanship, and they're very good. And he took me to them, introduced me. We met the guys, we sat down, and I told them what I wanted to do. And they said to me, listen, we've worked with a couple of people before who told us the same thing.
Yeah.
And it never worked.
Yeah.
And but they're like, you know what? We see the passion in you and stuff. Let's try it. We don't know where it's going to lead, but let's just try it. I said, okay, cool. So what I would do is meet with the client, take measurements, and then I'd have a fabric book from the fabric store with samples, show the client would choose what they're looking for, take the measurements, and I'd sell it as a premium service. I'd say, no, you don't come to us, we come to you. We come to the comfort of your home or your office. And back then, like nobody was doing it. So people loved it. It was like a premium service. So, and for me, it worked because I didn't have premises. So I'd go to a client, do the measurements, do the consultation, go to the fabric store, get everything, take it to the guys. They used to sit in downtown Joburg. Take it to the guys. They would do the construction. And from there on, I'd take the garment, take it to the client's house or office. They do the fitting, do the pinning, take it back until it was done.
Would you say that your background, so say the financial background, has helped you in terms of translating that into, like they said, like the guy said to you, the number of people that, every tailor can probably tell you the stories of the number of people that come to them about wanting to build, build a business.
Yeah.
And we've seen many come and go just in the city alone over the last 10 years. But you've been gradual, but also consistent in terms of how you've built what looks like from the outside a strong foundation. Would you say your background helped you in terms of ensuring that you create a business?
Absolutely.
So you've created a business.
Absolutely.
Yes, you happen to provide suits and shoes, etc., but at the end of the day, it's a business. You're not a designer.
No.
Because the problem that a lot of designers have is that they're great with designing,
but
they can't necessarily establish a business.
Yeah. No, it did. So corporate taught me structure. It taught me policies, principles, that there's certain things that you follow. There's a procedure in everything that you do. There has to be a front office, middle office, and a back office. And that's how I work. I always say my business is a front office, middle office, and a back office. Even when we have students that come, so we work with LISOF, the School of Fashion Studio. So when we have students come in, I take them through front office, middle office, and back office. They need to know all those because for me, it's very important. Creatives focus too much on being creative. They don't focus on running the business. At the end of the day, you are a business. You're running a business. You need to run it like that. So for me, corporate was my university. It taught me everything I know in terms of how to run business, how to have processes, everything. I mean, after I registered my business, I then looked for an accountant, and I was that particular to say from the word go, I want to have an accountant. I want to do my taxes. I want, my taxes are up to date since the first day. That's how it's always been. When something happens, I will phone my accountant and be like, listen, there's 1, 2, 3. Is it doable? That's how I am. There's processes. Everything has to go through the process. I understood that the business money is not my money. There's the business and there's me. If I need money, I need to pay myself a salary. What the business makes is money for the business, not for me. It's money to grow and sustain the business. So I need to pay myself a salary. So corporate, really, it really helped me to do that. And I see it in a lot of friends as well who are entrepreneurs who've been in corporate and those who haven't been. You see the difference in terms of how they run their businesses. There are some who are fortunate enough or smart enough to be able to know and understand those things and put them in place. But those who were in corporate first, you can see.
As we wind down, because I know you have to run because you have a child, like some of us do. How do you find, as an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship can be romanticized, but it's very hard. And you're having to balance priorities. You're having to balance the personal with the business, with the emotional, with the spiritual, with. How have you tried to balance that? Your son is still young, so balance that you're building this business, which has lots of demands. you also take time for yourself. I mean, I'm an introvert outright, so I'm not even an ambivert. Right? So I always try to have time for myself. Within having a child, recognizing that there's what you must provide them as a father, and that's emotional, that's the financial, etc. But there's also the example that you're setting, whether you recognize it or not.
It's a tough balance. I always equate it to gym. You know, you never get to the destination. It's the journey. It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. So rent is due every day. You know, what you did yesterday might have been good for yesterday. You know, because your son might have liked the fact that you knocked off early and picked him up from school and went to the movies yesterday. If you do it today, you did it yesterday.
Yeah.
Give me something new. You know, tomorrow. So it's a balancing thing, and also you as you go. Because I'll make an example with my son's relationship. There are times when certain things worked, and then I try and do them now, they don't work anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a constant change. Because I remember there are also times when, I mean, last year was one of those years where I was doing a lot of things. There was events for this, for that, and you know how our industry is. And I remember this one day my son said to me, I picked him up from school at 3. And we got home, and as soon as we got home, he said, "Dad, are you going to an event?" And I was not at that day, because usually that's how it was.
Yeah.
I'd pick him up early because I'd get home, spend a bit of time with him, change, go to an event. And that day he said to me, "Dad, are you going to an event?" He even said, he smiled. He's like, "Oh, Dad, I know. When we get home, you're going to change and go to an event." And I'm like, "No, I'm staying home with you." He was shocked. And for me, I was like, okay, so this is a lot. I need to change the way I'm doing things. You know, I think that's when I implemented spending time with him intentionally, to say, if there are days where I know that I can make time, you know, when I know that, okay, on a Wednesday, I only have meetings in the morning. In the afternoon, I can leave it open, pick him up from school, and let us go to the movies. And I remember after he said that, I think in the next 2 days, I sort of cleared up my diary and I did that. And we went to the movies. Man, Kojo, he spoke about it for the whole week. You know, he was like, "Yo, Daddy, that was the best. You know, when he picked me up from school, we came back home, he took a bath, and then from there we went to the movies, just the two of us. You know, went to watch Paw Patrol. And man, he even got to school, he told his friends. And so for me, it's a constant change. You know, you always have to find ways, because if I do that now for him, it might not be as impressive as it was last year when I did it. So you find ways. So
but it also means you mustn't stop it.
Yes,
right?
You mustn't stop. So you need to continuously. It's like with gym. You can't do the same gym routine and expect different results. Yeah, the first 6 months, the first year, it will work. But after that, your body gets used to it. So now
you must pitch up.
Yes, but you must pitch up. But at the same time, if you do the same routine, you're just going to maintain. So if you're saying, you know what, when you're starting gym, you say, I want to lose weight, and you do certain things, it'll work to just until a certain point. You know, the first year you can lose 10 kgs, but the following year you lose 2 kgs.
Yeah.
Because your body's used to it. So now you need to change and say, okay, I've lost this. What am I doing now? I'm toning. So I need to change my exercises. And when you tone, now you look at different results. You don't look at your weight now. You look at probably your body fat percentage. So the matrix change.
Yeah.
And that's how it is with this thing. You never find a balance. It's a constant thing that you always have to try and find a balance. But also it's communicating, you know. So for me, it's one of the things that my wife wants this year is for us to get a new house. And I said, fine, it's okay. We can do that. But for me, the requirement that I'm going to need is that I'm going to need more time away from home then. It means I'm going to need to work more. I'm going to need to work harder. So it's a give and take. You know, there will be a balance that this is what we're working towards, but there's a take that you're going to have to do. So more time will be required for me to spend away. I'm going to have to find new ways of channeling new business, new this, new that, you know. So I'm going to find new ways of making money now. So because we have something new that we need to work towards. And it's always that. But that doesn't also mean that now you spend all your time at work.
Yeah.
You also need to find time to say, okay, Sundays I'm not working. So Sundays I'm at home. This is the time we spend with family. But it's a give and take.
Yeah.
So what works on the 1 year won't work in the following year. It's always changing. You never get to a point where you're like, it's figured out and this is it.
Oh man, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was a cool conversation.
Yeah, I know. We had to cut it short. I'm sorry.
No, all good, all good. The Listen to Your Footsteps podcast is produced by Zebra Culture. If you have ideas of what we can do better, people you'd like us to have a conversation with, or would just like to share a thought, you can email me on info@zebraculture.com. To check out past episodes, go to kojobuffer.com/podcasts. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, Listen to Your Footsteps, check out kojobuffer.com/book. There are details on the various spaces it's available at. I'd also appreciate it if you could leave a review or comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, there's the Zebra Culture by Kojo Buffer newsletter, where on a weekly basis, I share a curated list of articles, playlists, videos, etc. that have caught my attention. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.